Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. You've given us a really fascinating stack of sources today. We've got everything from official NASA announcements, the usual stuff, to these reports of weird lights in the sky, and even this bizarre creature someone spotted in the ocean. It's quite a mix. Our mission, as always, is to dive deep into these reports. We're going to try and help you sort through what's being presented as, established fact, what's just observation, and what's really still up for interpretation. We want to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights from all this material, so you walk away feeling, well, better informed, but also with a better handle on how we all process this stuff about the universe around us.
Yeah, and what's really striking here, I think, is how these different sources give us such different viewpoints, different lenses, really, for looking at space, our own planet, and maybe even how information gets to us in the first place. We'll definitely be exploring that tension, between the official line from agencies like NASA and then what independent observers are reporting.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic that always pushes us to think about, well, how much are we really being told?
Exactly. It's a great setup for thinking critically about the stories we get. So let's kick things off with something that really highlights this exact dynamic. Our sources start with a pretty big announcement from NASA. It concerns something a lot of us have probably checked out over the years, the live feed from the International Space Station, the ISS.
That's right. The official word, straight from NASA's press release, is pretty clear. They are, quote, phasing out the space station live program this month. And it's going to be discontinued completely September 1st. So that's a definite change if you're used to just tuning in whenever. But it's important to note what they say will continue. NASA's saying there'll still be live coverage of dynamic space station operations, things like launches, dockings, landings, spacewalks, briefings, that sort of thing. Plus, they'll keep doing the weekly highlights of life on board the space station. So it's not like all video from the ISS is disappearing, but it is a definite shift away from that constant real-time public view.
Okay, and this is exactly where our sources jump in with a really strong counter-narrative, making some pretty bold claims about why this shutdown is happening. The perspective in this source is that NASA is, quote, running scared. And their words, NASA doesn't want any more eyes looking up into space above our Earth unless they control it. That's quite a statement.
It is.
They go on to argue that NASA has not been faster than we are at catching these UFOs and this activity that has appeared outside the International Space Station. So it's a direct accusation, basically saying the feed's being cut because people were spotting too many, quote, anomalous activities. And the source claims that people all over the world dedicated to this research have been building a mountain of evidence about these things.
Right, and this immediately brings up a really fundamental question, doesn't it? About the implications of moving from that 24/7 live view to what are essentially going to be, well, curated video clips, controlled clips. The sources point that if they had nothing to hide, they would keep the feed going, really resonates here, especially when they add that these anomalies were supposedly being caught more and more a couple times a week. So the real insight isn't just about this specific feed, is it? It's about how quickly changes in access to public data can fuel widespread speculation about transparency versus control.
Right.
It kind of forces you to constantly ask, what information are we really getting? And maybe more critically, why might certain information be limited? Is it just operational, or is it, like the source suggests, about managing perception?
That's a great point. Okay, so from controlling what we potentially see, let's shift to what NASA is actively investigating. Our sources next bring up another interesting NASA topic, what they call NASA's sudden interest in an asteroid named Bennu. So we're moving from live feeds to deep space missions now.
Okay, Bennu, let's get the facts straight first, based on the source material. It was found back in 1999. And interestingly, it crosses Earth's orbit once every 6 years, and apparently it has gotten closer since its discovery.
Closer.
Now, about the threat level. The source says Bennu will not have its chance to destroy Earth until about the year 2135, so quite a way off. At that point, the projection is it'll fly between the moon and the Earth, and there's a 1 in 2,700 chance of hitting Earth.
1 in 2,700. How does that compare to other risks?
Well, the source gives a pretty stark comparison. They say your chance of you being killed by a firearm is 1 in 7,900, according to the National Safety Council.
Wow.
So, yeah, that 1 in 2,700 chance for Bennu, even though it's over a century away, certainly sounds, well, considerably higher when put like that.
Okay, so if the big risk is that far off, what are they doing now? Our sources talk about this OSIRIS-REx mission. It's headed by NASA and the University of Arizona. And apparently, scientists have been gearing up for the OSIRIS-REx mission over the past month. The plan involves launching an unmanned spacecraft on September 8th of this year to reach Bennu. And its stated goal, according to the source, is to survey the giant asteroid and arrive and suck up 60 to 400 grams of soil to bring back to Earth in 2023. So on the face of it, it looks like a standard science mission, right? Go grab some space rock, bring it home, study it.
Exactly. But what's really interesting here is how the source reacts to this. They express quite a bit of skepticism about the real reason for the mission. They question the timing and especially the cost. They state pretty bluntly that NASA does not send out these billion-dollar probes unless they have a very good reason to spend that type of money.
Makes sense.
And their core question, which really taps into that theme of trust in official stories, is basically, if this object poses no threat to us for over 100 years, then why are they sending a spacecraft to it? Now, it just perfectly illustrates that ongoing tension, doesn't it? Between the stated scientific goals and this undercurrent of public doubt or suspicion, it makes you wonder how much we really understand about the priorities driving these huge, expensive space projects.
Absolutely. Okay, let's completely shift gears now. We're moving away from Earth orbit stuff and potential threats and looking way out into deep space at a purely astronomical wonder. Our sources highlight some, quote, really cool, interesting things happening in space, specifically focusing on this exotic star system called AR Scorpii. This sounds like something really out there.
Oh, AR Scorpii is fascinating. Yeah. The sources describe it as a unique double star system. It's located 380 light years away from Earth, not exactly next door. And its main feature, the really eye-catching thing, is that it has a white dwarf star that is currently blitzing another star with some very powerful rays. The source says it's like zapping this other star.
Zapping it, like literally.
Well, yeah, in a cosmic sense. Imagine these intense beams constantly hitting the other star. It's a very dynamic, violent interaction happening light years away.
Wow. Okay, tell us more about this cosmic zapping. The details sound pretty incredible.
They really are. So this white dwarf, which is actually quite small, is spinning so fast that it's causing particles around it to charge up to the speed of light.
Speed of light.
Yeah. And then it's blasting off intense beams of radiation out at its companion, which is described as a much larger but more docile red dwarf star.
Okay, so a small hyperactive star beating up on a bigger, calmer one?
Kind of. And get this for scale. The white dwarf is only the size of Earth, but apparently possesses over 200,000 times more mass.
Whoa!
While the red dwarf companion is about 13 the mass of our sun. And these two, they're incredibly close, orbiting each other every 3.6 hours.
Every 3.5 hours? That's insane for stars.
It really is. An incredibly tight, fast dance, creating this system that just pushes the limits of what we thought stars could do. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. This whole process raises a big question for the scientists studying it, as the source points out. While they can see the interaction happening, there's still a mystery about the origin of these electrons in the first place and whether they are even associated with either star.
Meaning the energy might be coming from somewhere else entirely.
Potentially. The source says scientists are trying to figure out if they've possibly come from somewhere else. Maybe an external source is feeding these particles into the system. It just adds another layer of mystery, doesn't it, to an already unique setup. It's a great reminder that even when we observe these amazing cosmic events, the universe can still hold fundamental secrets about how it all works. We're still figuring it out.
Absolutely fascinating. Okay, so we've gone from NASA decisions to deep space wonders. Let's bring it back closer to home now and unpack some of these more direct visual encounters mentioned in the sources. You know, the kind of sightings that just make you stop and ask, what am I actually looking at?
Right. Let's start with maybe the most bizarre one visually. A very strange alien-looking creature spotted off the coast of Australia by fishermen. Their first thoughts were apparently all over the place. Maybe a boat or maybe a hot air balloon just floating there.
Okay.
But when they got closer, the reality was, well, different. It turned out to be a dead whale of some sort. Apparently it was swelling up because it had been dead for a while. Decomposition gases.
Ah, okay. So a natural explanation, but still weird looking.
Exactly. And even knowing what it was, one of the fishermen apparently called it one of the most strangest encounters he's seen in over 21 years of angling. It really shows how something familiar, like a whale, can look completely alien when it's in an unexpected state or context. Perception is a funny thing.
Definitely. Okay, and speaking of strange sightings, the sources also include Very, very mysterious footage captured in Ohio of some very strange light formations in the sky. Ohio seems to pop up a bit here. This footage apparently was emailed in by a viewer, someone who'd actually set up their own research channel called UFO Underground.
Hmm.
And they captured this footage themselves off the road outside of Trenton, Ohio. And it wasn't just a one-off thing, apparently. They saw these lights quite often.
Right. And the description of the lights is what makes it so intriguing. They were apparently appearing, changing, moving into formation, disappearing, and reappearing.
Mhm.
That suggests, non-random movement, something controlled.
Yeah, not just drifting lights.
Exactly. The viewer saw these at least maybe once a week and was quite insistent they were not flares and not drones. Ruling out those common explanations really pushes it into the unknown category, doesn't it?
Hmm.
You can see why the viewer felt compelled to record it. That kind of repeated, seemingly structured movement is often what makes sightings stick out as truly anomalous.
For sure. Then we have this very strange moon image. This was sent in by a viewer named Charlie, and it's apparently from the LROC website. That's the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera, right? So official high-res NASA imagery of the moon.
Correct, high-resolution stuff. And the image shows, well, it shows what looks like an aircraft of some sort, or at least aircraft-shaped sitting in a crater. It even seems to have a shadow underneath it, according to the description. It's described as kind of shaped like a jet, or almost kind of looks like the space shuttle type shape.
On the moon, sitting in a crater.
That's what the image appears to show. I mean, it looks pretty distinctly like a manufactured object right there on the lunar surface. Obviously, that immediately makes you wonder what it is. Is it just a trick of light and shadow,
Yeah.
pareidolia, or something else? It's where that raw data really bumps up against human interpretation and speculation.
Wild. Okay, and let's wrap up the sightings with one more. Another instance of very anomalous lights in formation. This one was captured during Christmas time a while back, also over Ohio, this time Warren, Ohio. Like I said, Ohio seems busy.
Yeah, it does seem to be a hot spot in these sources.
Mm.
This particular sighting involved lights in a perfect triangle formation, described as goldish yellow, and apparently there was one in the back, way behind it, trailing the main formation.
A perfect triangle?
Again, it's the precision of the formation, the specific color, that seems to set it apart from, say, conventional aircraft lights or known atmospheric stuff. It lands squarely in that genuinely puzzling category. And taken together, all these sightings, from the whale which was explained to these lights and the moon object which aren't easily explained, they really underscore that fundamental human drive, don't they? To observe, to question, and to try and make sense of the unknown, even when the answers aren't obvious.
So let's try and pull this all together. What does it all mean? We've covered a lot of ground. We went from NASA's choices about public information access, the ISS feed, to the mysteries of Bennu's mission, then way out to the AR Scorpio system zapping stars, and then back to Earth, or near Earth, with these puzzling sightings of the swollen whale, structured lights over Ohio, that weird shape on the moon. It's a real spectrum.
It is. And if we try to connect it to the bigger picture, I think these sources, taken together, really highlight our ongoing human quest to just understand the unknown. They also really underline the different ways information shapes our understanding, whether it comes filtered through official channels or from independent, sometimes anecdotal observations. It kind of pushes us to think about those filters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How we receive information, and maybe the importance of questioning and investigating claims from all sorts of sources, recognizing there's often more to learn and definitely often more to question.
That's a great way to put it. So, thinking about all that, the final question really is for you, listening. What stands out to you from all this? In this age where we're flooded with information, official statements, amazing scientific discoveries, grassroots sightings, how do you navigate it all? How do you interpret claims that really seem to push the boundaries of what we think we know?